Hot Mic is brought to you by Red Wing Shoes of Fargo. Built to last. 3003 Main Avenue, Fargo.
Hot Mic with Dom Izzo.
Really? Really, Dom?
No. I like what Dom's doing.
Okay.
Dom Izzo.
Jeez, come on, Dom. What do you think I am, a magician?
Yeah, I'm fired up, Dom. What else could I say?
Absolutely. It was great to get on the field, and then Dom came up to me, and I'm trying to walk away from me. I just wanted to enjoy myself out there.
Hot Mic.
Great job.
There's got to be some kind of intelligent question about something.
Coach Dom Izzo, WDAY in Fargo, North Dakota.
Can you give me a layup or something?
Hot Mic. Presented by Northwestern Mutual.
That program is second to none.
On the networks of WDAY.
You know, if it's not about sports, I find it very hard to concentrate.
Here's Dom Izzo.
Good Wednesday morning. Welcome, everybody, to Hot Mic on WDAY Extra. Good morning to our friends in Sioux Falls that watch us on KSFL TV and in Western South Dakota and KNBN and everybody in between at Inforum.com. Happy Hump Day, everybody, as we near already the middle of August. Yeah, funny thing about time, it works that way. Good morning and welcome to the show, everyone. I am Dom Izzo, host of said program, ready to roll on a busy Wednesday. We're just a day away from preseason football. Yeah, I know you're all excited about New York Jets football is back in a couple days. Can't wait. The Vikings play on Saturday in their opener with the Giants. We'll get to them coming up in a little bit as well. They dominated the headlines as they always do. When there's something going on with the Vikes, it has a way of occupying all the oxygen no matter what is announced yesterday. You know, the Wolves had a little bit of a morsel for about 2 hours with the NBA schedule stuff, which we talked about on the show yesterday. The Wolves are going to play on Christmas Day at home at Target Center. And then the Vikings, Eric came up. What time was that you found me? 11:15 yesterday as we wrapped the show and just visited about some things for today and what we're going to do. And then, hey, you see what the Vikings did. Like, oh, they named their starting quarterback, invariably enough. So the Wolves had the headlines for about 90 minutes before the Vikes scooped in and took care of all that. And as we sit here, I mean, there shouldn't be any surprise, honestly, on what they decided to do. When they made the announcement they were going to go sign Kyler Murray in March, right after the Combine, right, that I think all roads led this way. This was the more shocking decision, honestly, would have been if they announced yesterday if O'Connell got up in front of the assembled media and said J.J. McCarthy is going to be the guy. That would have stunned people, not what actually happened, that Kyler Murray was named the starting quarterback for the Vikings opener coming up in a month's time against Green Bay. All roads led this way. However, they evaluated the free agent class of QBs, and it wasn't necessarily a great crop. You could say whatever you will, that Miami gave a buttload of money to Malik Willis. But the Cardinals are paying the freight here. So this is little risk for the Vikings. They're paying them $1 million. And if it works out, then they have a great year with a really good defense. And they've got Justin Jefferson back at his MVP level, which he certainly wasn't a season ago. You have the opportunity to go and do that. And if it doesn't, you're not out anything, right? I mean, you didn't spend a ton of money to sign him. Now, you could be out the backup quarterback, which I want to get to here in a little bit, because this is a move towards the now. It's not necessarily a move towards the future. And for the head coach, this is all on him. We talked about that in February when they fired Kwesi Adofo-Mensah. There was no cover anymore, even though I'm not sure why Kwesi gets all the blame on the drafting of McCarthy, because O'Connell was – it wasn't like it was a solo move and KOC had no impact or no vote on it, right, and no input. Of course he did. But there's no cover for him now, right? This has to work. There's no other – shields for O'Connell in this, in my estimation. Like, if the Vikings struggle this year, and I mean, let's say it bottoms out, then they very well can make a change at head coach. Now with a new general manager in place, a general manager that didn't draft J.J. McCarthy, right? He has some familiarity with Kyler Murray from his time in Seattle and obviously facing Murray at Arizona twice a season and knows what he can bring to the table. There's a lot of make or break here surrounding the Vikings in 2026. I want to play some sound from yesterday. First off, Kyler Murray doesn't offer that much of a reaction to what's going on, but I want you to listen to what Kevin O'Connell had to say yesterday after the news was announced.
Obviously, any competitor, you play this game, you want a chance to lead the guys on Sunday, and have opportunity to go win. And whatever that calls for me to do on Sundays, Mondays, Thursdays, whatever it is, I take this this job with great pride. There's been a lot of great quarterback play here in the past, and I just hope to continue to carry that tradition on.
Kyler, what do you think about this timing, this happening right now?
I mean, the whole process was great. Full transparency from KO to me, to JJ, to everybody in the room. The competition was what it was, and it's everything I expected it to be. I didn't expect to be handed the job or anything like that. I just expected to come here and compete, and I'm very appreciative of how it was handled. Well, I think as far as timing goes, just to be able to get the reps with the guys live, and everyone's rep in practice, or even if it's this weekend, whatever it is, however many that we get, I think it's all beneficial to, moving forward.
In the short time, just speaking about Kyler, I think he's demonstrated what he's capable of, both the experience he has playing at a high level in this league, but also his experience now of coming in here, being challenged. And I think he's shown enough to really project with the right prerequisite now of work for a starter leading into a camp, that we can get the rhythm, the timing, we can get the mastery of our system and this year's system, regardless of what we've done in previous years, what we're going to look like, how we're going to play. There's different things and nuances that, we're going to fit to what our players, Kyler included, do the best. And, in my opinion, he's got the skill set and the abilities, not only just from a standpoint of accuracy, but his ability to affect the game with his athleticism. But he's also proven to be smart, very hardworking and able to take in a lot of information and churn that out. Now we really want to give him the opportunity to really start building a comfort level, not only with the system but with the guys. In no way does this diminish anything that JJ's demonstrated. There's been real strong, solid evidence of growth. Some of the things we really pinpointed for him in the off seasons, he's shown just a tireless commitment to doing those things, and it's shown up out here on the grass, and even more so than that, he's embraced it, the challenge of it, with the right mindset every day that I think will have great benefit, on him moving forward, this daily improvement mindset. And clearly, as we've learned over the years, and nothing changes as far as JJ being an incredibly important member of our quarterback room and our team.
That remains to be seen on the last part, because now all the questions to me now go to 9, right? All go to what the Vikings do with J.J. McCarthy. That's the question now, because I've been in the mindset, and I've said it since March, especially when Carson Wentz signed there early in the offseason, that Carson was Carson Wentz is not a number 3. At least in his own mind, he believes he's a number 1. That's irrelevant at this point, but Carson Wentz is not, as a number 3 who doesn't dress, doesn't seem logical to me. Which then points that if Murray was going to be the guy and Carson Wentz is backup, then what happens to J.J. McCarthy? And you can look at a couple of recent high picks that did not pan out. Trey Lance is one of them. Trey Lance was taken with the number 3 overall pick by the 49ers. Obviously, he gets hurt. He's scuffled. They go to Brock Purdy. They trade him to Dallas, and the rest is history there. The other is Anthony Richardson, who I think was, Eric, correct me, was he 3rd or 4th? Richards was a top five pick, right? He's been hurt. It also hasn't worked. He asked for a trade as we sit here at 9:10 on Wednesday morning. He's still on the Colts roster. And remember, there was rumor the Vikes were flirting maybe with AR to get him before the whole Kyler Murray thing went down. So there's not a like a direct line to say this is exactly what the Vikings are going to do. I am of the mindset that I don't believe he's going to be on this roster when they open the season against the Packers. I think they're going to make a deal. And now what do you get for him? That's a whole other story that's beyond. I mean, Trey Lance got traded, I think, for a 4th-round pick, if I remember correct. That what Dallas gave him on a Friday night in the preseason a few years ago to the 49ers. And here's the thing. He missed the entire season, his rookie year in 24, because of the knee injury, right? Last year we saw him. He was brutal in that Monday night game. For 3 quarters against the Bears, it was bad. The 4th quarter, electric. That game against the Lions, he comes back out of the bye. That's the tape the Vikings are going to sell. Like, he can do that. But there were other instances, him pulling himself out of the game at the end of the season. He's propensity to been hurt so far in his career. His inaccuracy is alarming. That's why they did that. I don't know what they do now. I really don't. As for the Vikes, the obvious decision here with Murray, you make this because, and O'Connell also said both of them are going to play on Saturday in terms of Murray and McCarthy, which is a bit eye-opening. I guess I am moderately surprised on that. How much Kyler Murray plays, it can't be more than a series on Saturday against the Giants. It better not be. I mean, you're not playing your entire offensive line, which Christian Darrisaw missed games last season. He's still coming back. You don't want to risk that with Brian O'Neill. Blake Brendel playing center. You don't want to go down that road. Fries missed time last year, right? And if McCarthy, I'm assuming they're playing him to maybe show him off. I don't know what you do off preseason tape. For Kyler Murray, Saturday is moderately important. Next week is hugely important. This time next week, as the Vikes have joint practices with Baltimore, that's those 2 days, because he's not going to play in the game. I would be stunned if he played in the game next week. Those 2 days of the joint practices against the Ravens are critical, because that's the last time he's probably going to get any kind of meaningful reps until the season opener with Green Bay. If you look at the schedule, does this change what you thought? If you J.J. McCarthy supporters out there to say this was going to be his year, and looking at the Vikes schedule, and this is what it was going to be, and we're going to roll with that. Does that change your opinions now? To me, again, I was always of the mindset that Kyler Murray was going to be the guy. But you look out of the top here, those first 3 games are all really tough opponents. I don't think the Bears are going backwards. Maybe I'm way off on here. I think Chicago is poised to be good. And the Vikings always struggle at Soldier Field. I know they won last year, but typically they struggle at Soldier Field. And Tampa is going to be better. I believe that. The Dolphins are meh. The Saints are meh. The Colts should be better. That Lions game is going to be tough. And then don't even talk to me about the middle part of the schedule. Lions, Bills, Packers, Niners, come on. Those are all playoff teams. My mind. Falcons, Panthers, somebody's got to win the NFC South. Patriots, I mean, we're way down the road here because we're in December. It's folly to tell me what's going to happen then. But I'm just really interested to see what happens now. What does Nolan Teasley do? Does McCarthy's camp say we want to move on? Right? I don't know if he's necessarily a malcontent. Is he upset with what went down? But does he now go to the powers that be and say, yep, where is his path forward? That's O'Connell says we still see him as a future part of this team. Let's go back to my first point before we move on. If Murray is good and is a great season, they win 12 games, right? McCarthy doesn't play. So that's another year that he doesn't play, right? And sets it back even further. I just don't see a path forward with him. And the Vikings then would say, okay, we're going to pay Kyler Murray to be our guy. Like they should have done with Sam Darnold 2 years ago in this spot. We'll find out. Going to be fascinating, I think, over the next week and a half to see what happens. Maybe they roll with it like the Colts did. And who knows? Maybe Murray gets hurt, right? That's the one thing you can never predict is injury. So maybe Kyler Murray gets – I just don't imagine Carson Wentz just sitting there being number 3. Maybe I'm way off on that. We're going to find out. Real quick before we get going, the Twins played last night. Talk about, again, look, there's no oxygen left for them because the Vikings scooped it all up. The Twins had no life last night after a really rousing win Monday night against Baltimore. Last night, Bailey Ober scuffles continue. Again, they're not going to win any games. They're not going to win the wild card or division if they can't get good starting pitching. And Ober was not great last night. Oh, this guy. Why can't the Mets find players like him? Pete Alonso. Oh, I miss him so much. 2-run bomb. He loves hitting at Target Field. He's got to have at least 5 or 6 home runs at Target Field in his career. And he only plays there every 2 years. They weren't done. Gunnar Henderson, former All-Star, slams that one to right for another 2-run homer. Made it 4-0 Orioles just in the second inning. The long ball plaguing Ober last night. Twins finally scratched a run across in this. I love RBI groundouts as much as I love sac fly highlights. Alan Roden grounds out. Royce Lewis scores. Makes it a 4-1 game. Another former Twin great, Christian Encarnacion Strand. He was traded, I want to say, for either Sonny Gray or Tyler Mahle. I think that was the Mahle trade because Spencer Steer went with that as well. He hits a home run. 3rd home run allowed by Ober makes it 5-1. Twins would get a little bit closer. Brooks Lee with a double down the right field line. That would score Ryan Jeffers. That made it a 5-2 Baltimore lead, but that was as close as they would get. Orioles starter Brandon Young was good. Turned it over to their bullpen here. They get Josh Bell. Does Andrew Kittredge to strike out? Orioles win it 5-2 to even the series at a game apiece. Twins were limited to just 7 hits in the game last night. Ober takes the loss. 6 innings, 8 hits, 5 runs, and 4 strikeouts. Game 3 comes up this afternoon, 12:30 at Target Field. The Twins now fall behind the Tigers in the American League Central race. Detroit makes sense of that. They've won 3 in a row. They're 2.5 back of the White Sox, who lost last night, and the Twins now 3.5 back. And the wild card, now Detroit is part of this mix. They've leapfrogged Minnesota as a game and a half ahead of ahead of Minnesota. You got a cluster here. Tigers are half game back, then Minnesota, the Guardians, and the Orioles, if they're able to beat the Twins today, would be 1 game out of the wild card. So can't mess around today with a matinee at Target Field. We have a packed Wednesday lineup. Excited about our guests here today. Our guy Drew Trafton will join us in just a few minutes. We'll talk more about the Vikings QB situation with him and a few other topics at 9:20. Excited to welcome back our guy Sam Herder back to our show at 9:35. Sam's going to join us now on Wednesdays throughout the season. Our first topic up is, what does the FCS look like in 2026 without North Dakota State? It may seem obvious, but we'll try and explain that with Sam at 9:35. At 10 o'clock, Andy DeLaBarre will join us, head coach at Lemoore Litchfield Marion. The Lobos, twice in a row, they have been runners-up in the 9-man Dakota Bowl championship games. The 3rd time, finally, the charm for them. We'll visit about the Lobos prospects in 2026. And at 10:35, we'll visit with new Bison running back Nyeoti Punni on his birthday, by the way, to chat about coming to NDSU, what the adjustment has been like, and getting some reps out there. He is impressed. In the times we've been out at fall camp, he has certainly stood out, A, from his stature, B, from his speed, and C, from his size, that he's going to get some carries in the Bison backfield in 2026. You'll meet him coming up at 10:35. That and a heck of a lot more here on a busy Wednesday. We'll take our first break. We come back. Much more on the Vikings' decision to roll with Kyler Murray. What happens there? What's next for J.J. McCarthy? And a heck of a lot more. We're glad you're joining us back on a Wednesday morning edition of Hot Mic on WDAY Extra right after this.
The biggest Seahawks, Sounders and Mariners fan in the FM area. It's time for Views with Drew.
Drew Trafton joins us each and every Wednesday. Sometimes things are so simple they shouldn't be overthought. And I tweeted this out yesterday because the Seahawks and Broncos announced that they're playing this year.
Yes.
And they're going to go old school with their uniforms. And I tweeted this out like, they look great in 1987. They look great in 2026. Why are we overthinking this?
Right.
This is what they should wear.
Yeah. I mean,
that looks awesome.
There's been such a call, within the Seahawks fandom for the last few years, especially since they were the first team to get the Nike treatment in 2012, and they haven't had a significant, redesign since. And so, like, they're kind of overdue for a redesign, and so many fans have been clamoring for this idea of
going back.
Hey, just go back to the old colors, like use the new logo maybe, but just like keep that color, or like go back to the royal blue. Yeah, I do too. And it's
that looks awesome.
Yeah.
Right there, it's Bo Nix and Sam Darnold.
Right,
Let's
the
go.
colors pop.
Right.
So after your tweet, I did see your tweet yesterday, and then I was kind of like, it got in my algorithm, of course, like whenever that sort of thing pops up. And because I'm a sicko like that too. Like I love the throwback. And someone was like, why do these look so much better now?
Yeah.
Like what's with this? And it has a lot to do with like the materials that the jerseys are made out of, and like just the crispness of the imagery on our TVs are different. The resolution so much higher, and so like those brighter colors
just pop.
Which so many NFL teams went away from. They pop so much better, and this is such a TV sport.
That's what I'm saying. Like if the Patriots decide, hey, we want to go back to Pat the Patriot today, that would look amazing.
Yeah,
if the Buccaneers decide to wear this here in front of me, let's go.
Yeah,
right?
And the Seahawks played the Buccaneers last year in Seattle, and they both wore those 76 because it was their 50th season for both franchises. It looks so good.
Yes.
And it's just like the other thing though too is like Nike has the contract for the NFL jerseys. And I've always thought it's been backwards. Like, they'll make 1,000 different jerseys for colleges, right?
Yep.
And they'll make the NFL is so rigid. Like until a few years ago, they had the helmet shell rule, where you could only have one or two if you were grandfathered into that helmet shells. And now they're loosening that up a bit. But I was like, it would make so much more sense to me in my mind that colleges would be more restrictive on that stuff because of cost alone. Yep. But and the pros would be trying to sell as many jerseys and combinations as possible. But we live in this backwards situation with that.
I think of all of our correspondents, you know more about Kyler Murray than anybody.
I've seen him
play. So you've seen him more than anybody else. This seemed like a fait accompli when the Vikings signed him in March. That everything was pointing towards this 100% decision. I guess my biggest question I asked in the first segment is, what do they do with J.J. McCarthy now?
Right. Yeah, and I don't know. And here's the thing. Like the joke, of course, is that Kyler will start through week 9, and then he'll get hurt, and then JJ can play 5 games and he'll get hurt, and then Carson can play a few games and he'll get hurt. And it's just like which is obviously like very jaded and not how you should.
Maybe not necessarily inaccurate though either though.
No, it's maybe not. Here's my thing as someone who's watched Kyler Murray. Is he tends to start out hot. Like he's those weeks where defenses are trying to figure out what teams want to do. There's not a lot of game film on what these teams are trying to do. Kyler processes, and he says this himself, he processes the game really quickly, but in real time, which is why he has said in the past that he doesn't do a lot of film stuff.
Yeah, we know all that.
Really matter.
We know that old deal.
And so he starts out hot. But then once teams kind of figure him out a little bit or figure out what he wants to do with the football, when he's going, then like he has to, go through his progressions a little bit deeper, or, it's just like things, teams disguise looks a little bit more. He really falls off, and I think the worst thing that could happen actually is an injury where say he gets 6-7 games in and he's still in that hot zone, what we've seen with his career.
Right.
And then
get dinged up.
He gets dinged up, and it looks like man, he was on fire before he got hurt, and then that leaves the Vikings going like, well, do we bring him back? Because he was doing so well, and so that's like the shadowy part of this. Like on the bright side, he hasn't had a Kevin O'Connell before either, right?
Nope.
So it's like we don't know, certainly like you wouldn't think that Sam Darnold was going to be Sam Darnold.
Well, Kingsbury maybe, right? But I don't know if Kingsbury's the same of what a KOC
like
is.
He's so Cliff Kingsbury's offenses are so more air raid.
That would be the only one I think, but it's not the same of what O'Connell does.
Right. So maybe it'll work. I'm just so. I've just seen Kyler play so much, like you said, that it's just like I wasn't a huge fan of that move at any point.
The JJ deal is because I brought up Anthony Richardson, I brought up Trey Lance because those are two high-profile guys that didn't work. AR's still with the Colts. Obviously, Trey Lance is now on his third team since moving on from San Francisco. I don't know what they. I just don't know Carson Wentz being a number 3 guy. I don't see that being the case. But I know they needed 4 quarterbacks last year, so maybe that's their thinking.
Thought Kevin O'Connell's, like when he was speaking yesterday, it was always, he'd say the quarterback room, but then when he would say specific names, it was always Kyler and JJ.
Yeah, there was nothing mentioned of Carson Wentz.
Right,
nope,
so it's like if they keep 2 guys, or, JJ's clearly their backup.
Yep.
What that means for JJ's future, like the Adam Schefter, message that we saw yesterday, where he's like forced to be a backup. That language that it was used,
Which is really odd, by the way, that Schefter tweeted that. I thought it was bizarre.
That had to be coming from JJ's agent.
Correct.
Like that he's a competitor. He wants to start. JJ's made that perfectly clear.
You can't ignore Schefter's Michigan connection either,
of
right?
Course, which definitely pours fuel on that and gives him motive to push that out there. But it's like, so it's very clear that, okay, if JJ doesn't get the opportunity to be the guy, like a real shot, with his remaining years on his contract, he's gone.
Right.
And
because if to your point, if Murray is good, then that's a whole other year that JJ doesn't play.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And the Vikings are going to go sign Kyler Murray.
And do you give JJ his 5th-year option at that
way.
point? No way.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like, you can't, especially with that position, like you have to spend so much capital, with your salary cap on that one position that you can't afford to do that.
One last thing before we got to roll here, because we got Sam coming on next, and I am curious your overview of what you've paid attention to on FCS football without NDSU. How is it? How has it felt leading up for the fall camp? The preseason poll came out, the Buchanan and the Peyton watch lists. How does it feel? Does it seem different without the Bison there?
It does, but I don't think outside of the Missouri Valley that's been such a huge thing. To me, this feels very much like that 23 season where South Dakota State was just like head and shoulders above everybody else. I think you have that in Montana State, where it's like they feel like they're that dominant, and then everyone else is kind of playing for second, and I feel like that might be a Grizzlies, maybe. I mean, I don't know. I'm not as confident in that. There's just so many question marks. I feel like South Dakota State has a big case there. And I think where that absence of NDSU is so deeply felt in the Missouri Valley. Where it's like this is a huge, and I think it's seen more for those teams that are remaining as like a massive opportunity of who fills that, who fills that power vacuum. And it's like, can someone fill that power vacuum? And I don't think that means like who's going to be the next, dynasty necessarily, but it's like who can take that mantle up right now and like take that big step to be a perennial contender.
See, that's what we've been asking that for a decade.
Right.
We've been asking somebody else step up.
Yeah.
Somebody on the East Coast, somebody in the southern part of the country.
Yeah.
It ain't happened.
Here's the difference this year is somebody has to.
Right.
Like it's like that spot is empty. So somebody does have to fill it. It's just like, is that going to be somebody who can do it, consistently?
Correct.
Yeah, like with a sustainable program. And it's like, is that a Tarleton? Like, and how long are they going to stick around?
Right. Everyone's circling on them. I got to see it to believe it on them. They made it the quarters last year and lost at home to Villanova. You got to do more than that to fill what you're talking about.
Is it a new school that's just going to blow by everybody and get to FBS in a few years?
I'll do this with Sam, but everyone's on Illinois State. Illinois State's got to show it to me. I mean, Illinois State still was
and they lost
miracle way, but they were this. I mean, they were this close to losing to the Bison.
Yeah,
and then we're talking. It's Illinois State again. They're 9-5, and they're just the Redbirds like they always are. I'm not sold on them. I picked them 5th. I don't have a ballot anymore, but I picked them 5th in my poll. I don't believe in them at all.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of question marks about beyond the first couple teams, is that UND that steps into that
I think
void
it is.
and really, becomes that team. The one thing I'll say is it doesn't feel like the top heaviness has changed all that much.
Correct.
It's just that instead of NDSU winning it every year or 3 out of every 4 years, it's just going to be one of those other 3 teams that are kind of just always lurking around the top.
Great stuff as always, bud. I appreciate it, and we'll see you next week, all right?
Yeah.
We'll have preseason football to chat about next week, right?
Yeah,
Look
like
out.
a full slate of week 1 preseason
Woo!
games.
Did you watch Hard Knocks yet?
I did. I watched
Is it any
both
good?
episodes. I
heard McDonald freaked out on the guy going near Darnold. Is that accurate?
Derek Hall, yeah. They've made Derek Hall a really big character in the first 2 episodes. I've very much enjoyed this season of Hard Knocks.
Because he was bull rushing.
Yeah, he was bull rushing, and they weren't doing that. That was
you can't touch the quarterback.
No.
Yeah.
And he got precariously close the second time, and that's when Mike McDonald
lost
freaked
it.
out.
I saw that clip on Twitter yesterday.
Was good.
Thanks for coming by, bud. Drew Trafton joins us each and every Wednesday at 9:20. We'll break. We come back. New time slot for one of our regulars. Sam Herder's back with us. What is FCS football like in 2026 minus North Dakota State? We'll ask him that and a bunch more when we come back.
This is Hot Mic with Dom Izzo, presented by Northwestern Mutual.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Wednesday morning edition of Hot Mic rolls on. One of our stalwarts is back with us. A new time slot, new day for our guy Sam Herder, and also the biggest and best designation, new dad as well. He and his wife became parents in the best month in June. Congratulations, my man. How is it being a dad?
Yeah, it's been great. It's been the fastest 10, 11 weeks ever. Summer has flown by, and it's been good, but back at work now for the last couple of weeks. So excited to get back into the swing of things and be back onto the show. I'm bringing some cabin vibes to the show right now. We're up on the North Shore. And the timing kind of worked out well because my office space, I kind of got booted upstairs, and that office space is still coming together, so I didn't really have a cool backdrop.
Under construction?
For that, so.
Are you getting any sleep right now?
Yeah, thankfully, sleeping at night has been really good. So we're very thankful for that. We know that's not always the case for parents, and so sleep at night has been pretty good. So we're very happy about that.
So there were a ton of things I was told before my son was born, like, hey, this is gonna, and everything was right. Was there anything you were told beforehand, like, I don't know about that, and then of course it comes to fruition? Is there anything that comes to mind, like, okay, everybody was right about this?
Yeah, I think one thing. I don't know if it's necessarily off the wall or not, but I remember one time someone told us, like, it's going to take you forever to get out the door. And I was like, I can't take that long. Like, just have the diaper bag pre-packed. Nope. Everything's good. But yeah, now before it was, we have some friends at a brewery. All right, let's go. Let's head out. We're out the door in 5 minutes. Now it's like,
nope.
Well, has she been fed? She's going to have to feed and then diaper change. And so that's one thing I remember hearing and being like, it can't be that bad. But now it's like, yeah, it takes a while to get out the door now.
That is fantastic, because I was telling Jack a story, like he had to be maybe 4 months old. For some reason, I brought him to the mall, and by the time I literally got out the door, we had to get back so he could eat. I was there for like 15 minutes. Like, that was the dumbest thing I ever did. Why did I even decide to do that? So you're spot on that. So
yeah.
How much have you tried to keep up what's going on? It's been a crazy summer as per usual. Have you tried to stay on top of things? I understand you got to be a dad too.
Yeah, I tried as best as I could. I didn't go completely dark. I was still on social media, which is kind of the best place to keep track of things nowadays, as far as just like kind of quick hitting updates, whether it's the 5 for 5 or what Congress is doing and all the different rule changes as well when it comes to the NCAA level. And I kept up with my Jersey Countdown as well, and read other articles and other podcasts as well, just to try to stay kind of up to date with what's all going on in the FCS. So I wasn't totally, in the dark throughout the summer. And, a lot of the stuff too during the summer is not necessarily timely. Like it doesn't really matter if I write the doesn't really matter if I write the Tarleton preview in June or August. Maybe that's a good example because Tarleton just released their 2026 roster, so kind of works out that way. So yeah, summer's been really, really busy, but yeah, it's been good.
Well, I don't know about you. I'm just dying for the games. There's so much that we talked about last summer. It seemed like you and I were discussing the House settlement every show. Now between the eligibility stuff and obviously the Protect College Sports Act, I'm just excited to cover a game. And we have that in 15 days time. We're actually going to have football games to talk about.
Yeah, the offseason continues to get crazier and crazier, whether it is realignment or rule changes or, just what's going to happen to, the NCAA if they don't get an antitrust protection. So, and now it's like I'm trying to finish some of my best returning players, but there's I don't know who's all coming back now. There's like multiple all conference players that they could come back, or they might not, come back depending on one, if they get a waiver pass because they played at a JUCO. But now if they played 4 years, like fifth year players as of right now can come back, but that could get turned down if the NCAA gets its say in court again. So yeah, it is like you said. Once the games start, I think we all kind of go back saying, okay, college football is still fun. Like tailgating is still fun. The games are still fun. All the off the field stuff is kind of a headache for fans and media. But once we get to games, it's kind of like, all right, Saturdays are still some of the best days when it comes to the calendar year.
Now, I know this is probably a tricky question since you've obviously been away. I'm interested, though, from what you know, your analytics on your site, traffic-wise, how has it changed? Has it changed with North Dakota State not being there and sucking up all the oxygen? That's kind of my go-to phrase for today. Has it changed a lot for what your site does, what you're covering for Hero Sports?
Yeah, so far it's been good. Obviously, I can't compare June and July to last year just because I was off this June and July. But yeah, all the months, February, March, April, May, we were up year over year, in website traffic. And like my preseason top 25, I checked the analytics. Like we had more page views on my preseason top 25 this year than last year. Not by much, but it was still a year over year increase. So I think there's always that concern. I remember after the 2021 season when James Madison left and they had a really passionate fan base, and Sam Houston, Jacksonville State as well, they were decently passionate, kind of being concerned about what does that mean for, page views and all that and podcast listens. But it continues to go up because I think, like at that point, like Idaho fans weren't necessarily in tune with FCS nationally, but then they got good, and all of a sudden, Idaho traffic went up, and Montana State continued to rise up, and so their level of interest in national coverage has gone up. So I think as teams leave, other fan bases kind of take their spots and be more entrenched in what's going on nationally. So we'll see how the season goes. That's obviously when most of the interest is there. But I think so far it's shown some positive signs that the level of interest in the FCS continues to increase. And I think last year the playoffs really helped with that, because I do think if NDSU gone undefeated and won the national championship, the discussion would be different this offseason of like, what is the playoffs going to do without NDSU? It could be in trouble. But because the Bison lost early last year, we saw a sample size of what could be, in like all the TV ratings for the most part went up in the quarter, semis, and championship game. And I think that at least gives a sign of confidence that, there still is a level of interest, even though like the Bison brand carries a ton of weight, that even without NDSU, that the interest in the playoffs and FCS football, I think is still going to be really high.
What does it look like this fall, though, Sam, without NDSU? Montana State obviously is the clear-cut favorite, but just as a whole, what does the subdivision look like without them there?
Yeah, I think it'll, again, I think the playoffs helped just because we saw the quarters and the semis and the championship game without NDSU. But I think when NDSU has been such a stalwart throughout all these years in the FCS, it will look a little bit different, obviously. But I think for the most part, because that announcement happened, 6 years ago, like I think a lot of people have already kind of moved on to a certain extent because like whether it's media or fans, like in their headspace as they're thinking about the 2026 season and who's going to be good, who are the top players, like NDSU just isn't, on the radar anymore. So I think naturally people have kind of just like moved on. I've only heard one comment on social media as far as like, oh, it's so weird not seeing NDSU, on there. But other than that, I feel like everyone has kind of like moved on to the fact that, okay, it's going to be Montana State, and then who are their top challengers? Is there going to be a dark horse in there? So it is weird when you talk about it, and you bring it up, but I don't think it's like kind of on the top of mind as we look forward to the season.
I want to look at the top 10 that came out when Craig Haley put out the FCS stats poll, which obviously you're a voter on that. And Montana State clearly is the team that everyone's looking at. And then I'm interested after that. Montana has obviously got a new coach. South Dakota State, what do they do if Chase Mason can stay healthy this year? And then after that, I don't know. Davis, we think might be good. I was just talking with Drew Trafton on. I'm not sold on Illinois State. I got to see it. Because they were this close to not even, it would be another 9-5 year if they don't beat NDSU. Tarleton, what do they stack up in 2026? What after Montana State is out there? You tell us.
Yeah, I think South Dakota State is going to be really, really good, and I think Montana. It just seems with the Grizz there is kind of a breath of fresh air, some renewed energy. We'll see what they look like operationally without Bobby Hauck at the helm. There was one thing you for sure would know about Montana with Bobby Hauck leading the way, and that was they're going to be very disciplined. And they have a lot of talent this year. Are they going to kind of be operationally as clean as they once were? I think that'll be really important to pay attention to. But I think the Grizz have a ton of talent, especially offensively. After that, though, I think UC Davis has a chance to be really good if their quarterback play hits, and that's a big unknown for them because they'll have a new starter, but traditionally the Aggies have been able to reload at that spot. Illinois State, like you mentioned, I think is going to be fascinating because can they capture the lightning in a bottle that they caught in the playoffs last year and kind of parlay that into this year? I know like fan base wise, that's really ignited them. They've raised millions of dollars as well in support. Quarterback is a question mark, same thing with probably cornerback and defensive line, but they bring back 3 or 4 starters on the O-line with starting experience. Dawson is coming back at running back. Yeah. They have 2 experienced receivers on the outside, but they do lose Sopkowitz. Niekamp brother is coming back on the defensive side. So there's a good nucleus there for Illinois State, but can they continue on what they did last year? I think we'll be interested. Very interesting. And then, after that, I think Tarleton is going to continue to rise. I think UND is going to be really good the more I look at them. The one thing that's interesting in the FCS, there are so many good quarterbacks coming back. So, like Austin Peay, Chris Parson, really good. Does he vault them into a top 10 team? Youngstown State with Bo Brungard coming back. Can they vault into being a top 10 team? Rhode Island has Devin Farrell back. He's an All-American quarterback. Can they take the next step? So, a lot of these rosters, there is a decent amount of turnover, but the one spot that has been kept relatively clean in the FCS has been the quarterback spot, and so we'll see if some of those teams that do return their standout quarterbacks, if they can elevate their play.
I'm just looking at the preseason top 10. You mentioned Tarleton, Davis is there, Rhode Island, Villanova. Which do we know a solution on their quarterback yet? What's going on with Villanova's QB status?
Yeah, Pat McQuaid. Well, he's not on the 2026 roster, but the NCAA turned down his waiver for a 5th year. Or for an extra year, but then the court said he could come back, but they're still trying to figure that out. So Villanova has a good amount coming back. I think if McQuaid is back, they're a top 10 team. If he isn't back, then that's obviously a bigger question mark at the quarterback spot. But I think Villanova should be pretty strong, and they're moving to the Patriot League.
That's right.
And so the Patriot League is kind of going up. I think the Ivy League is going up as well. The CAA is kind of sliding backwards behind, those two. The East Coast is, as we always talk about, the East Coast, someone needs to rise, out of there. And is it Villanova, Rhode Island? I think Yale is going to be really good this year as well. So I'm very interested to see how things shake out East.
Last thing before we go, now this is the FCS is going to have week 0 to itself. That's now going to become week 1 starting next year because FBS is going to move in to that last Saturday or Thursday in August spot. I am disappointed the games that are there aren't necessarily any good ones, Sam. Like on that Thursday, 2 weeks from tomorrow, we don't have anything that really jumps off, say, boy, that should be on TV and let's get going.
Yeah, I did a podcast on this, a handful of months ago, just talking about how I thought it was a missed opportunity for the FCS because they had the TV windows to themselves Thursday and Friday, and then most of the day Saturday. And as you and I have talked about for a few years, like it was just a matter of time before the FBS fully moved into week 0. So this was kind of like the one-time shot for the FCS, especially to capitalize on the momentum of last year's FCS playoffs and the championship game. I feel like a lot of casual fans kind of bought into the FCS and saying they were going to pay attention to it more this upcoming year just because the playoffs and the championship game was so fun to watch. But now, there isn't, a whole lot of needle-moving games. Like Tarleton plays Prairie View A&M. PV is probably a Celebration Bowl favorite, and Tarleton is going to be a top 10 team. So that one's pretty decent. And Southern Illinois goes to West Florida, who's the newest FCS team that has potential. That's another decent one right there. But yeah, I counted them up, and I think it's 20 plus FCS versus non-D1 games. I can't remember the specific number, but there's just way too many non-D1s in week 0. So like you said, kind of a disappointing slate for the FCS in week 0.
It's great to have you back, man. Congratulations, and we look forward to doing this on Wednesdays this fall, okay?
Yep, that sounds great with me. Great to be back on.
There he is. Sam Herder joins us from Hero Sports, BetMGM. We're not abandoning our FCS coverage. Sam will be on each and every Wednesday. Give us the lowdown on what's going on across the FCS. Let's break. We'll come back. We'll wrap up our first hour. Andy DeLaBarre coming up in hour 2 from Lemoore, Litchfield, Marion, and the Lobos hoping for big things. We roll on a Wednesday morning. We're back right after this.
This is Hot Mic with Dom Izzo, presented by Northwestern Mutual.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Hour 2, ready to rock and roll here on this Wednesday morning. You'll meet new Bison running back Nyeoti Punni coming up in about a half hour's time. Excited about our conversation with the former Holy Cross running back. It wouldn't be our fall camp tour that we do here on Hot Mic each and every year without our next guest, because I've been bugging him for a better part of a decade. His team's always really, really good, and they're going to be good again in 2026. Lemoore, Litchfield, Marion has made it to the Dakota Bowl each of the last 2 years, and now he might hang up on the Zoom now that I'm bringing this up, and they've lost in the title game each of the last 2 years. Andy DeLaBarre joins us, longtime head coach of the Lobos, back here in 2026. But you know what? I tease it. Third time is the charm, right? That's what you got to be telling your team when practice started last week.
That's definitely in our mindset now. We have to have short memories, but a short memory from a long time doesn't seem like that long ago. We were just in the Fargo Dome in November, so it's definitely still in our minds, but we got to move on. We got a new season ahead of us.
Well, off of that, Andy, how much do you play into that, saying, you know what, guys, we've been there. We've been nearly to the mountaintop twice in a row, that we know exactly what it takes to get there?
Yeah, and we know the season's long, but, we talk to the team, and I always kind of set up our goals for the season, and I think every team has that same goal, some more realistic than others, but, I think we feel like it's a reality, or it could be very realistic to this team this year. And, but we can't just get there, right? We got to focus on so many of the smaller things, the foundation of what it takes to build a championship team. And we can't just look at the end and say, hey, how long until we get there? We got to progress throughout the season. So, it's definitely our top of our pyramid. It's the top of our goal, but at the same time, we got a lot of bricks to lay before we get there.
Well, maybe on the outside, people that don't know your team are like, well, that Thielgis guy I know is at NDSU, so they can't be any good. But you still have some dudes back that you're counting on this fall.
Yeah, well, it's, honestly, Gunnar was obviously a very special player for us and did some really impressive things with school records. But honestly, there's other positions that we're probably hurting the most and trying to fill with our linemen. And, it's the unsung heroes are those linemen. And,
totally.
We got to give credit to those guys when we can. So, yeah, we've just like everyone else, you graduate a few kids and it's about finding new positions to fill. And we hope that we put the best guys there, regardless of what their age or who they are.
9-man is always a question on football always a question on numbers, but especially 9-man is. Andy, where are you at this fall with that?
Yeah, we're lower than normal. We've got 20 kids on the roster right now. That may fluctuate. Hopefully to the plus side once school starts next week. But we're fired up with the guys we have. We're very talented. We're just not real deep, but I think a lot of schools, a lot of teams kind of sit into that same category too. So we're excited with the kids we have out and ready to get going next week on their first game.
So you started practice last Thursday. What is day one like at 9-man? We had Zier on last week. He's going at midnight. I don't think you guys did that in Lemoore, but what is day one like for a 9-man fall camp?
Day one's a lot of running, a lot of technique. We find out real fast who comes in shape, who's still needing to work themselves here to get to game speed. So I told the boys, I said, no matter what, that first game with that adrenaline dump and just the jitters of Friday night, you're going to feel a lot more tired on Friday night at some point, but again, you're going to fight through that. A lot of that's so much the mental side, but yeah, day one, it's kind of nice to get in there, run the things we know. We got good returning guys coming back, have got really good experience, and again, just kind of that edge of knowing, hey, we're going to go shoot for something this year.
Andy, you told me as well, we were visiting off air, that you break it up. Like some teams I know go 4 hours straight, and that's our day. You still do a kind of a traditional 2-a-day for fall camp.
Yeah, it's light. We go real short to just get in, get the work done, and then come back later. A lot of kids that we got on the farm, they go work in the ranch. They go sit in right now it's the wheat harvest. So, for some of them, they go and do some work, and then they come back and, we get a little more work in the evening. But it's a lot of fun. The mornings, we start at 6 a.m. and we get outside, we turn on the music. The neighbors probably hate it, but, we get going and the sun comes up and, we kind of pause and look at the sunrise, and I don't know. It's more of the experience, I think, than anything is, to tell themselves, hey, we went through some of that hard grind of fall camp. I think that means a little bit more than just going in there and playing football.
I got to rip the Band-Aid off one more time. When you left the Dome last year, was that harder than the year prior?
Yeah, definitely. And I no discredit to New Rockford. They definitely deserved and earned both of those championships. And we felt just that there was missed opportunities in our game. When you look back, you watch it, and from a coach's perspective, player's perspective, it's a game 100% we'd love to have back again. But a credit to Elliott and New Rockford, and those boys had something big to play for, and they proved it that day.
So that answers my next question. You have watched it. How many times? Just the once? Have you gone back, or how many times have you put it on?
I stomached it once, and that was enough for me to go, what else am I doing this for? So the rest of it would be just torture. So no, you watch and you go, there were those opportunities, and maybe you watch it again just to kind of look at who we got coming back, but there's a lot of that you already know, being familiar with a lot of our players. So it's good.
One of those guys coming back is Preston Arndt, who announced over the summer he's committed. He's going to play football at Northern State, which obviously is not far from you guys. How big a deal is to have him back and base everything maybe around him?
It's huge. He's been kind of, I'll call him a 4-year starter player for us. And he's just continued to develop his body and just becoming a better football player. His knowledge has gotten better over the years too. So he's definitely a player defensively that teams are going to have to work around. We hope that we build, enough talent around him as well that, that there's going to be some difficulties for teams. But I think him committing to Northern State, that's a pretty good program for Division II football. And we were at team camp there this summer, and I think ever since then he kind of fell in love with them, and they fell in love with him. So it was a good bit, and we're excited for his future there too.
So he's 6'1", is that accurate? 6'1", 6'2"?
Yeah, he'll say 6'2", but he's got the size that he can go out and be a good linebacker at that level, I think, and he's a good athlete, super strong, so I think there's going to be multiple positions he might be able to look at.
Because his dad was all of 6'7", if I remember correctly, at NDSU, big guy. So obviously it comes in the family bloodlines there.
Yeah, he's still hopeful that he's got some growing to do because he wants to get closer to dad. But he's taken what he's gotten. He's earned every bit of success that he's had just by the work he's put in.
I know you're worried about next Friday's Haddon Northwood. We're going to look at your schedule here. You play Wyndmere, you play Hankinson, you play the teams super well there in Region 1. What stands out for you on the Lobos schedule for 2026?
Well, just Region 1 is always competitive. We've got such, I think, good football in this part of the state, and good coaches. Coaches that have been coaching these programs for a long time, and so we got to respect every single Friday night, whoever that opponent is. So, Haddon Northwood's our first game, and honestly, they're probably one of the next favorited teams in our region. Next to us, I would say, and then from there, you got some tough road games. You go to Wyndmere, you go to Hankinson, and I don't care how talented or not talented they are, they're going to play good football. So, but it makes it fun. I think that's what makes Region 1 so special, is that every Friday night it's going to be a battle of a football game.
Well, I'll say you have three of my favorite road trips. You're going to Wyndmere, you're going to Hankinson, and Enderlin to end the year, which is, I love going down there. But the first two, full well, anytime you guys travel, it's a big bleeping deal. Like when LLM shows up, there's going to be a bigger crowd than most other games.
Yeah, definitely. If we hope that we love the target on the back too. If the polls come out and we're in that top 5, which I would hope that we are, and you still got to earn that. So whether we are or we aren't, we're going to go out and fire up, play that game, whoever that's against, and yeah, we got to earn whatever position or whatever spot we are, and honestly, it doesn't mean anything until come playoff time.
I have to ask, I was talking with Chad Smith about this yesterday at Valley City, because they play next week. The inherent challenges of this, you just started practice Thursday. Like, what is the ramp-up like where you're trying to balance safety, obviously get the guys ready, but, hey, we have to play a football game a week from Friday?
Right. Well, mental. It's the mental side, because you go, for especially new players, right? If you're getting put into a spot that you're going, okay, I didn't do this last year. What is my footwork going to be on this play? If, just thinking offense, alone. So there's a correlation there, but from the brain to the body, and so you're going to see players who are going to play a little bit slower. Probably that first game, hopefully that first game, as compared to their last game, just because I think it was Brett Favre who said, I don't think when I play football, I just play, and that's what we want our kids to get to. We want to rep as much as we can now, and I've told them, I said, hey, it's okay to mess up now, just mess up 100%, because we can figure out the X's and the O's, but coaching you to play 100%, that's on you. So it'll be a challenge, but it's something that we really preach and try to get them to the point where they don't have to think come next Friday, they can just go play.
All right, I want to throw something at you. You've played a ton of games, playoff games, especially at home. With now Valley City's got turf, with more turf around. If I told you that we want to have the semifinals on turf at neutral sites, where would you come down on that?
Yeah, I've always been an advocate for it. I think that it makes sense just conditions-wise. I think it depends on who you're asking and on who the home team is.
Exactly.
It's hard to give up a home game. I think that's something that now if we had to go to Cavalier on a semifinal, let's meet in Grand Forks, right? But it's one of those things where I think it's got to be just kind of common sense. If your field's not at its best condition, what you hate to see is a neutralized field and not the best team playing at the state championship game. So yeah, it's still football. So I get you got to play in those conditions. But if the field's been tore up from the 3 weeks and the entire season before, especially for as dry of a year as it's been this year, if some of those fields that don't get irrigated throughout the season, they're going to get some wet nights that are going to get torn up pretty easy. So no, I've been an advocate just because it keeps the game as level as possible.
Well, and I say that you've played a ton of semifinal games at home. I mean, you have a distinct home field advantage, and there are other teams. You mentioned Cavaliers certainly got one of them as well. New Rockford has enjoyed that. If you want to have the best two teams make it to the Dome, then we've got it in every corner of the state now. It's not too far away from where you guys are at. They go to Jamestown. You could go any corner of the state. If we want the best teams to get there, I know giving up a home game is a really big ask, but I think that's not a bridge too far, in my opinion, to do that.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, even if it was, I know Minnesota has that weekend for their sectionals, but if it'd be great to meet in a Alara Center or a Fargo Dome and have a western or eastern side of the state go out and play what would be kind of like a Dakota Bowl schedule. Then you're indoors too. Well, now you can't say anything about the conditions, but I'll advocate just to have us put field turf down in Lemoore. Maybe then we won't have to worry about it.
Good luck with that one. Yeah,
just a few. Yeah, maybe I could buy the Lakers after we're done. Do that too.
I haven't had a chance to ask you, the Bison alum that you are, because I haven't talked to you since. But where were you when you heard the news on the Mountain West? And as a former player, what do you make of what's going to go happen with your alma mater?
Yeah, where I was, I don't remember, but I remember just being excited, bringing that next level up to the program that I think, you and I have talked about this too, but just looking at the Bison from a national perspective, this just puts them up on that map even more. And now to be in that Mountain West Conference and to go out and play, I got tickets to the Wyoming game. I'm excited for that one. I think it's brought a refreshed excitement to the state of North Dakota and the surrounding area, and the chance for the potential college football playoff now too.
Yeah,
you look at what James Madison was able to do just last year, and not to say that hey we're going to go out and win it in year 4 or 5, but just to have that opportunity and to bring that program up. I think we're just raising the bar is all.
Andy, you were part of that 2004 team, that first Division I game. Do you get a sense that the game with Jacksonville State will be similar to that game with Valpo? Maybe not the result, but the energy around it that when you played in that game.
I think just like I said, a renewed feeling of excitement for where this program's heading. That first game, and in 2004, it was kind of that excitement of, well, now it's official, and there's no longer that 2, it's the D1, and whether you want to call it AA or FCS at the time, and I think the Bison, their competition might be a little bit better than Valparaiso, but we looked really good in our first Division I game against Valpo, so we did. I don't know if we set the bar too high that first game. No offense to Valpo, but yeah, I think there's going to be some excitement these first couple of games, and then getting into homecoming with Wyoming, and some of those road games too are going to just be super exciting, and just to know that it's probably not going to be a halftime. Everybody head back out to the tailgating lot, so. I'm excited.
Well, did you go after the Hey, Division I's easy after this ain't going to be that big a deal after the Valpo game.
Yeah, well, we beat Montana the year before. We beat Valpo. We were riding pretty high, but we got kind of brought back down after a few games, but it was a good start. Good start.
It's great to see you, man. I always appreciate you doing this to get us ready for the 9-man season. Have a great year. I know we'll talk during the season, and thanks for the time this morning.
Hey, appreciate it, Dom. Take care.
There he goes, Andy DeLaBarre, head coach, Lemoore Litchfield Marion. Lobos, again, are going to be one of the top contenders in 9-man football in 2026. We look forward to following their exploits. Arndt's a good player. His dad was a dude for the Bison offensive line, one of my first teams I covered here, and be fun to watch what they do. Again, 2 times in a row, been to the Dakota Bowl, lost to New Rockford Cheyenne both times around. I got a feeling that Elliott's team will be in the mix as well in 9-man in 2026. All right, we'll break. We get caught up here. We got a few emails to get to. I mentioned our conversation with Bison running back Nyeoti Punni coming up in about 15 minutes as well. Back on Hot Mic right after this. Welcome back. Our thanks to Andy DeLaBarre. It was good stuff. I'm just off our conversation we had with Sam Herder in our first hour. Craig Haley has put out his Missouri Valley conference preview and predictions for the season. He's got the Jacks at 1, Illinois State at 2, Youngstown 3, UND 4, USD 5, SIU 6, and then UNI, Indiana State, and Murray. I would dispute that. I on the record, I picked UND to win the league. I think defensively wise, UND is going to be pretty salty in 2026. Not saying the Jackrabbits aren't going to be any good. I think SDSU will. But they've got to show it to me at the running back position and defensively what they're going to do. Because those were glaring outside of whatever happened at quarterback. And obviously they went through it with Chase Mason to Luke Marble to Jack Henry ended up being the guy. And then obviously Mason is back. You got Christensen back up front on offensive line. That's a good starter. That game with Northwestern is an intriguing one. That comes up, I think it's September 5th, I want to say, or the 12th. I can't remember what exact the date it is. Those dates are not necessarily as important as they used to be for me. But be one to watch. Be something that we'll see how it goes, transpires in that particular day. And there's a couple of them, especially in the Valley this year. You look at the top teams here in Haley's prediction. So the Jacks have Northwestern. That's not unreasonable to be a winnable game. I know David Braun will be extremely motivated for that game. Just from Braun's time here, he knows full well what the Jackrabbits bring to the table. And the amount of Chicago guys that are on SDSU's roster as well for that matchup. Illinois State plays Northern Illinois. We've already talked about that. For the Mountain West, if you want to have a contender for the CFP, right? And because they look at strength of schedule for everybody, you cannot mess around losing to FCS teams. Bar none. Cannot. Montana State, Nevada cannot go the way of the Bobcats. For the Mountain West to go out there and tout themselves as a potential team to vie for the top spot. Because remember, it's the highest ranked group of 6 team that gets into the CFP. That's how it works now in 2026. The Mountain West is not going to be highly ranked if you got teams in that league losing to FCS squads. Just a matter of fact. Illinois State is a prove it to me again. They lost so much. Quarterback gone. I know what Sam was talking about, but they lost a lot off that team. Sobkowitz and Rittenhouse were really, really good. Up front, they lost a bunch too. Youngstown is definitely a prove it to me. They lost to Yale. And they were up by 3 touchdowns at home and lost that game. And they lost a bunch off their team. I know Brungard's back, but that wasn't the issue. Defensively was the issue for Youngstown State a year ago. And then they got UND. Youngstown, by the way, I want to say they have Kentucky. I want to double-check that. And then obviously UND plays Nebraska as its FBS opponent. That, to me, obviously is a huge challenge there. And we've already went through the Fighting Hawks schedule, the first 7 games. 6 of them are highly winnable for them to get out and stake a claim to be the top of the rankings early on in the season. At least that should not be messing around whatsoever on that. So that's the intriguing part of what's to come. It's hard sitting here and how much we covered the subdivision in a completely national perspective. We did out of Fargo. And it wasn't just us. I'd say we did the best job. But obviously our competition at the other TV stations, I know Bison 1660 did an amazing job covering it nationally. It's not there anymore. Sam and Craig do a great job of it, but it's not that's it on a national perspective. Because how many times we run into this when there was a FBS-FCS game that they didn't know anything about said FCS team outside of a couple of bullet points on them, right? They wouldn't. They just don't. And now that the NDSU is gone, it will be hurt by that. There's no way you can convince me otherwise that it's not going to be massively different going forward. By the way, that Jacks game with Northwestern is September the 5th, which is a night game. So you Bison fans out there can go watch the Fordham game. By the time you get home from the Dome, That game will be kicking off on BTN, which I'll be watching simply because I want to see, because I'm not going to get much out of the Stetson game to start the year for SDSU. I got to see what happens for their game with Northwestern. And the Wildcats are not predicted to be super high in the ultra good Big Ten. We'll see on how that plays out. But just my last point on the FCS perspective of this is how the vacuum is there, where everyone was shooting towards NDSU, and because Haley makes the point. And the facts are the facts, and I get what he's trying to do on it. It says in here, make no mistake, South Dakota State is the team to beat, having won more conference titles than NDSU this decade, 4-3, and owning just as many FCS national titles, 2, and championship game appearances, 3, as the Bison. All of that is fact, but it just South Dakota State doesn't have the same 1,000-pound gorilla in the room that NDSU did. It just doesn't. Maybe that'll happen, but without them there, and I think Jackrabbit fans are acknowledging this as well, without that target there, it just feels different. You could say Montana State, sure, but the Jackrabbits haven't lost to Montana State outside of the one time in the playoffs when they ran out of gas after they had played 4 straight road games. They have beaten them every other time. Maybe that'll change here, but that to me, just that vacuum is there. And to what Drew was talking about earlier, I don't see that being filled as much as people want to talk about it. Because we've been clamoring for, how many times have I come on the show and said we need somebody to be good, right? Mercer bubbled up, and Mercer had a nice run for 2 years. Their coach is gone, right? Took 3 of his best players to Toledo in the MAC this year. Tarleton, we want Tarleton to be good. We'll see. Sam mentioned Villanova's gone. They're now in the Patriot League. They thought the CAA was that bad that they left to go from the CAA to the Patriot League, which has less scholarships than the CAA does. So we'll see. We'll be keeping our eyes on it. Maybe not as much as we used to, but I'll be definitely curious to see what happens there. All right, let's break. We'll get back on time. And we come back, the newest Bison running back that may very well be playing a heck of a lot more than some of us thought. Nyeoti Punni will join us on transferring in from Holy Cross for the first couple weeks of camp that's coming up when we come back.
This is Hot Mic with Dom Izzo, presented by Northwestern Mutual.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Final half hour here on a busy Wednesday. I should have mentioned this earlier. Really neat story from ESPN.com. Headline is College Football 2026. How much does each position cost? Last year, they did something similar with the Power 4 starters that were earning at every position. And this is relevant, obviously, the era we're in, where certainly North Dakota State, South Dakota State, UND that have seen players move up. The range of money here is astonishing for some that may read this like it's like monopoly money. Quarterbacks, $1 million to $3 million. Say that again. QBs getting $1 to $3 million. Josh Hoover, who's going to be the starting quarterback for the national champions at Indiana, getting near $4 to $5 million. That is like triple what they'll make in the National Football League if they were good enough to get there in their rookie deal. Running backs, $300,000 to $800,000. Again, this is talking top of the line schools here that can dish this out. Wide receiver, $400,000 to $1 million. Jeremiah Smith, who might be the top player in college football this year, wide receiver at Ohio State, said he was offered $10 million to transfer from Ohio State at the end of last season. But you're already at Ohio State. Like, where else are you going to go? The Buccaneers? Like, you're at Ohio State, who has, 23 wide receivers in the National Football League now. Tight ends, $300,000 to $600,000. Here's the number that actually is pertinent to us. Offensive tackle, $600,000 to $1.2 million. And that's what I heard on the range for Bo Johnson. When Bo Johnson went at the end of last season, when things were starting to really percolate, right, that the vultures were out, and I was just sniffing around like, hey, what kind of money? And I heard high six figures. Like, what? Yeah, there you go. Guards and centers, typical range, $400,000 to $800,000. And I don't say that like Pollyannish wise, like, holy cow, I thought on the low range of maybe 150 to 200. I can tell you confidently with Bo, it was well north of that. Trent Fraley in the same range, obviously, as well. Defensively, Toby Anene, we know left, went to Colorado. Range there, $500,000 to $1.2 million. Right? So you make your own assumptions. D-tackle, $500,000 to $1 million. Linebackers, apparently they're a dime a dozen, $300,000 to $700,000. Corners, $400,000 to $900K. Safeties, $300,000 to $900K. And by the way, since the Bison lost a kicker and a long snapper, I looked this up as well. Kickers, $50,000 to $200,000. We have to think Eli Ozick got something. Eli Ozick was a proven kicker at this level who kicked multiple 50-yard field goals from Iowa. Long snapper for our guy Caleb Bowers, $10,000 to $50,000. So even he got something to go to Florida State. So when we talk money, we talk players leaving, this is the numbers that are being thrown about. And again, I ask you, if you were 22 years old, 21 years old, and that is presented to you, you can't sit there with a straight face and tell me, I'm going to stay for the loyalty of the program. They believed in me, which is great if they do. But Polisic said it yesterday. Says, everybody's out here trying to get ours. We know what we want to do, right? They know exactly what is out there right now. And it's crazy. Nyeoti Punni, I don't know if he got that kind of cash. I can tell you he didn't. But he got something when he entered the transfer portal after playing at Holy Cross for the last couple of years. And the Bison were in need of a running back after Braylon Tolliver went down in that final practice of the spring, because I'm pretty sure Tolliver would have played quite a bit for the Bison as a true freshman. As it were, they went hunting and they found Punni, a young man who was a track standout out of the state of New Jersey and ran competitively in the Patriot League at track at Holy Cross. Football is still relatively newish to him. But he has arrived, got here in late May, started diving into the playbook, and now as fall camp is into its third week, this is a guy that if you've gone to practice or seen our highlights, he steps out. He jumps off the screen as a potential guy that could be a difference in the Bison backfield. I visited with him about his transition to Fargo and so far adjusting to the NDSU offense.
I mean, honestly, I feel like it's been smooth. Coach Knapp kind of took me in and kind of showed me the ropes and how they kind of envisioned me being here. And I worked, we all put in hard work this summer, and it was hard, but it was worthwhile. And I think Coach Knapp and his staff does a great job of kind of the conditioning, the strength program, and it's kind of second to none. And I was definitely impressed, and I feel like I got a lot out of it for sure.
How eager are you to show the coaches this is what I can do?
I'm very eager. Coming from FCS and not really putting it all together until last year, and then now I have the opportunity to kind of make an impact here early. It's going to be awesome. I'm very, very excited to show the Bison faithful and show the coaching staff what I'm capable of.
You had a chance now to work out with the guys, the other running backs. How do you see yourself fitting in with the other running backs in the room?
Yeah, I feel like we all kind of have different stuff to us, and I feel like as a bigger, taller guy, I can kind of be an element of downhill run game, and also have the speed to get on the outside. So just wherever the offensive coordinator and Coach Ajuri want to use me, I feel like I can make an impact for sure.
I think people will look at you, and this is my first time seeing you in person, see your size, don't know how fast you are. Is that a really deceptive part of your game?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've kind of relied on my speed since I was young, and I kind of put on this weight and this size a little later. So it's been great to kind of have the size on top of the speed, and I feel like it's going to help me immensely because defenses are going to see a guy like me and see I'm trying to get downhill, but also I can run right past him. So I'm excited to be used in this offense.
So since the last couple months here, if we have people ask you, like from back home, what's Fargo like? What's the kind of questions you got from back home about moving to North Dakota?
Yeah, so obviously being from the East Coast and coming from a school in Massachusetts, a lot of people haven't really been out to North Dakota and especially Fargo. And I think one thing I told them is just It's a nicer city than you think. It's the people are really nice. Every time I've been out in the town, everybody's been nice to me. And once they know I played football, they kind of told me they were happy I was here. And it felt good to be a part of that kind of community.
I remember you telling me how much you're going to slam the playbook. You just took your finals. You were going to slam the playbook. What was that stretch like? Was it even more stressful than you thought, that 2 to 3 week stretch of getting out here and meeting people?
Yeah, so having to graduate, and then I was meeting with Coach Jerry virtually while I was still finishing up. So just trying to learn the playbook. So when I got here, I was able to hit the ground running, and he did kind of a good job of kind of being patient with me, as I was finishing school, and just helped me along the way. So I'm very grateful.
What do you think you can show this team and show everyone that, hey, I can do this, I can help this team win right away?
Yeah, I feel like I just do whatever Coach Larson and Coach Ajari ask for me. If they want me to be an element in a downhill run game, power game, I can do that. If it's outside zone, mid zone, using my speed, I can do that too. So, I'm just excited. I feel like I can be used in a variety of ways, and I just want to help contribute to winning.
You certainly got the frame for it, and that's the interesting part of how they use him going forward. You saw a couple of his highlights as well of sprinting him out of the backfield and catching the ball as well, which is a element that hasn't been there. I know Polisic talked when we met with him on Monday about wanting to see more guys break tackles and get forward and get some extra yardage there, which has been constant since he's taken over the job in January of 2024. But this guy is, we'll see. I would not be surprised if he gets 10, 11 carries in that opening game with Jacksonville State. Let's see if it broken up that way with 10 carries maybe for DJ, 10 to 15 for Scott. Maybe it's 5 to 10 for Miles Mitchell. Same in the boat for Nyeoti Punni. He's got really impressive speed. I'm not sure if it's going to be the shiftiness. Like that seems like that's Miles Mitchell's game. That seems to me when we visited with him on Bison Media Day on Friday, that he can be the change-up, shifty kind of back. Punni might be the straightaway, boom, I'm going to take it, I can run over you and go. We know DJ Scott's got that run over you mentality. Go back and watch the highlight last year against South Dakota where he popped the helmet off this USD unwitting defensive back in the game at the Fargo Dome. But that's an element that NDSU has not had at that spot in a little bit. Bruce Anderson had that kind of ability. Just go and gone. I'll be really interested to see how they line up offensively, knowing that there's going to be new guys at wide receiver. We talked about that, from Jeremiah Patterson to Jordan McCants. Tochi Okuro is getting some reps out there. The 3 transfer wide receivers. I think Isaiah St. Romain and Logan Conklin, the 2 North Dakota guys, are in that mix as well. It's going to be really interesting offensively what the Bison look like trotting out there for this game in 17 days against Jacksonville State. And we'll talk about this next week on the show as we start really diving into the Bison opponents. Jack State can play some D. Again, I think for Bison fans, they have this stuck in their head of that team in 2015 that was high-flying offensively, and the Bison just road-graded them to win the national championship. Jacksonville State is good. They've won 9 games each of the last 3 years. They won Conference USA last year. This is not Valpo coming in to start the Division I era. This is a really good team to start the FBS era for NDSU. And a heck of a challenge. We're going to find out so much about this team. I'm talking about NDSU in week 1. Totally. And then the Fordham game will be it was, and then they go to Air Force, and we're going to find out a bunch more then. It just is, like we've said this 100 times. I know we've got to go to break. The not knowing makes it exciting. It does. The not knowing about it, and I've been asked to do a couple of interviews over the last few weeks about the team. And the not knowing part is both stressful to do this job and to try to speak intelligently about it, but it's also fun. Like, I don't know, going in over the past few years, we knew how they're lined up. They're going to be awfully darn good. I think they're going to be pretty good. Just this player we just featured here, Nyeoti Punni. I don't know. I think he might be good. We'll see. Fascinating part of what's to come. All right, we'll take our final break. We come back. We'll wrap things up. Got a busy Sports Wednesday on tap. Our last day without preseason football. We'll tell you what's coming up when Hot Mike wraps right after this. right, wrapping things up here on this Wednesday morning. Sam Getzinger will be filling in for me tomorrow. His conversation with Isaiah St. Romain. We were just talking about Isaiah from Williston, North Dakota. Will be featured as part of our program tomorrow. So make sure you are locked and loaded for our show coming up tomorrow from 9 to 11. Let's get a couple emails in here before we go. Dom, is Kyler Murray's film room habits improved? Didn't the Cardinals insist on his film room hours being contractually obligated in the terms of his deal? They did. Then they rescinded it when it got out because it obviously didn't look good for anybody. Pretty sure the Cardinals are just about as poorly run as any NFL franchise that's out there, maybe even worse than my beloved Jets or the Browns or anything like that. But yes, that obviously was the knock on Kyler was, and Drew Trafton and I talked about that in our first hour. It's not necessarily something that he spent a lot of time working on. That's concern. You know, if he processes it well and goes out and plays well, then all of that will be pushed to the side. Like, let's go. We'll roll with however he can win games for us. That's the catch-22 of this whole deal. Really, really is interesting on how that's going to play out. I'm more interested now, how much do they play on Saturday? Like we talked about up top of the show, like if it's more than a series or two, then that's not good. You cannot have that offensive line because, Justin Jefferson isn't playing. I don't think Hawkinson's playing. I don't think Jordan Addison's playing. I mean, he's not throwing to guys that he's normally going to be throwing to when they play the Packers to start the season. It cannot be on a series or two for this opener with the Giants. And then how much does McCarthy play? And I assume we're going to see a lot of Carson Wentz in the preseason. Drew made a good point, too, as well, that O'Connell didn't bring up Carson's name at all during the presser yesterday. I don't know, maybe they're trying to build up McCarthy's value if they do intend to move on from him. One other quick story that came across here this morning for the TV nerd and myself and others out there that love golf. The Guardian is reporting that Apple TV has had, quote, preliminary discussions with the RNA about bidding for the Open Championship. NBC's deal ends in 2028, that Apple TV wants to potentially make a bid there. Now, Apple TV has the Friday night games on for Major League Baseball. They have F1 and their MLS deal, which is not worked out. That'd be interesting if they get into the major championship being streaming only would certainly rile up the golf fans who aren't thrilled that some, like the Masters went to Amazon this year and the PGA's on Paramount Plus and NBC's on Peacock. But that's only for a short amount of time. We're talking the whole thing. Yikes. Keep our eyes on that. Let's do some What to Watch before we get out of here. All right, What to Watch brought to us by our friends at Northwestern Mutual. Twins of the day game today. We'll see if they can take 2 or 3 from Baltimore. Coming up at 12:30 on Twins TV. The Lynx play late tonight on the West Coast against Portland. 9 o'clock on Victory Plus for that one. We'll see if they can keep their good play going after 2 monster wins over the weekend. One of my favorite golf events, the U.S. Am, is underway. 2 o'clock, that's on Peacock. That's going along with the Pine to Palm, the match play getting going today out in Detroit Lakes. Our thanks to Drew Trafton, to Sam Herder, to Andy DeLaBarre, and Nyeoti Punni. If you missed any of the show, you can podcast it later today at Inforum.com. You can watch a full replay on WDAY+. Thanks so much for making us part of your day, everybody. Have a wonderful Wednesday. See you tomorrow.